Hello and welcome to Reanimated. This is episode 294. I don't remember if I've said that one before, but this time I'm pretty sure that's what the number is. It's Stuart, me. I'm West Coast, California based. Joining me is the New York located H.A. Conrad.
Hello.
Hi. We have been off the air for we haven't done a month away in a long time, and it's been about a month, and that just kind of gives you an inkling that the world is slowly coming out of COVID, because we've been occupied. We've had things going on other than sheltering in place.
Well, mainly lots of work for me, but there we go. But a little bit of travel, so that was kind of nice. Local travel, but nice nonetheless.
Yeah. Today we're going to be trying to close the loop on Fear the Walking Dead, very belatedly, admittedly, but we want to at least, put a bow on this thing and send it off wherever these kinds of shows deserve to go. Not to show my hand too much. We've also got a lot of news to talk about. So without further ado, HA, do you want to talk about this trailer that came out? It dropped, I think, last week.
It's Kingdom. For those of you who watched Kingdom like us, loved it, you'll be excited to see this trailer. It looks pretty cool. It's Asheen of the North, and I mean, it has that same feel of the Kingdom, and I didn't see quite as many hats, but I am sure they are in there somewhere.
Yeah.
There are hats in there. I kid. But I don't know. Like, I think production, especially for something at this scale, has to have been delayed because it's just like a lot of people. And I like, if you watch Kingdom, the number of extras and also the sort of like the size of the cast is pretty massive.
It's usually pretty big, yeah.
Right.
This is not coming out. This is coming out soon.
But this is going to be released July 23rd. So I say all that, and I mean, it looks exactly as you would hope that it would look, given that it's a Kingdom kind of offshoot.
Let's see. This appears to tell the story of the woman who was revealed at the end of season 2, when they were like in a village in the north. I believe it was the prince, or I'm not sure. I kind of hazy on the end of that season, but they did suddenly introduce a lady, and she seemed to be living with some zombies or something. So I'm not sure, might be a baddie, but this appears to be her backstory from the trailer.
Yeah, and it's also supposed to be the reveal of the origin of the resurrection plant, and then it's also, I mean, so it's what they're calling basically a sidequel. I guess to Kingdom, which I think is kind of funny. But it looks great, so I'm excited to watch it. The trailer looks awesome, so definitely check it out if you have not yet. And I think we're gonna have to review it clearly when it comes out, so we don't have too long to wait.
We don't have long to wait, and it's going to be a busy summer because we've also got Black Summer season 2 to talk about, and that has been. This is not in our show notes, HA, but I mean, I'm sure that, I don't know if you've been able to stay away from watching it. I had to watch a couple episodes.
I did not. You sent me the sort of the link, and I did not watch it yet because I want to watch it closer to when we review it, because I have a habit of messing things up if we end up doing it like a couple episodes at a time. I don't want to mess it up for everybody. So
I also sent you that little review that Simon Pegg did on his social media. He's just walking around recording. He's like, I just finished binge watching season 2 of Black Summer, and oh my gosh, what an amazing show, and it's bleak and depressing, but in all the best ways. And he just had some really good feedback, and I actually saw that because Kelsey Flowers had shared it on his social media. Black Summer is also on our to-do list. Kingdom, Ashen of the North, also on our to-do list. I feel like Walking Dead season 11 has a release date of August now, I think.
And also, like, I do think there's going to be a Kingdom season 3, but that had been delayed because of COVID. So at least this will keep people hopefully happy in the meantime while they work on that. But yeah, I'm excited. I'm definitely excited to see that, and I'm excited to review the Black Summer.
Yeah, it's gonna be a busy couple months here. And then other things that I thought were happening, but apparently aren't. The the showrunners of Fear the Walking Dead were doing some like post-season wrap-up interviews and like live AMAs on Twitch and stuff. And one of the things that they revealed, it was Ian Goldberg, he revealed that basically the submarine webisodes thing hasn't even happened yet. It's like an idea. It's a script. And
I
yet,
know, right?
so he also reveals in this interview, it's on cbrcomicbook.com. He reveals that, yeah, like some of the details were leaked. And yeah, I mean, I agree, because I was talking about this weird, massive spoiler about the submarine. I feel like before even the mid-season finale, or at the mid-season finale, somehow someone just blasted this, unless it was a fan theory that just was like right on. This felt like a huge leak, and then to find out that these webisodes haven't even really started, they're not in production essentially, at least that's what Goldberg's saying. Because I do think that there's a lot of good storytelling seeds, at least in these 2 episodes that we're talking about, especially where it comes to the submarine. They drop some hints, and they have some real stuff that they could work with.
Yeah. And I think there's a lot to go on here, and I agree with you. Like I kind of was under the impression that this was already going, so I was a little surprised, but what are you gonna do? And then the other bit of news that really enraged you.
God damn.
I'm gonna let you reveal this one.
Another one from comicbook.com, from another interview where, who was it, that Ian Goldberg, again, post-season live stream with the TWD universe on Twitch. So there was an episode that HA and I think were fairly critical of, called Things Left to Do. It might even be the one where Virginia gets capped at the end of the episode, but it's certainly the one where Morgan has like taken her away from that ridiculous shootout in the streets of Lawton. And they are like going to the water tower and then getting rolled up on by Sherry and Raleigh. That episode was written completely accidentally with no walkers in it. 0 zombies in a Fear the Walking Dead episode, and not on purpose. And he admits as much. And I don't know if there's something wrong with me that makes me think, how do you have this job? How are you the showrunner for a zombie show?
I was also enraged, and I felt like this was just also a weird thing to reveal and admit to, don't you?
It's
like,
very, yeah.
So
I mean,
I just was like sort of surprised.
Maybe it's just like, transparency, and we should be grateful. But
maybe, I don't know.
But so they had to put one in post. They had to do some pickup shots, which is a thing you do, I guess, after you've shot the initial thing. You go back and you have to do some other shots. And so they put in the one zombie where Colby Minifee, like, for some reason, tries to go under a tree instead of around it, and then a zombie's on the other side of the tree, and then so that was the one zombie that they put in as an afterthought. And I do believe we mentioned that there were very few zombies in this episode when we were reviewing it or recapping it, but I didn't for a minute think that they...
Yeah, same.
Yeah. So mind blown.
All right. So are we ready to jump into this and wrap this puppy up?
Night of the Animated Dead?
Oh, shoot. I forgot about that one. Sorry. Before we get into that, there is a new Night of the Living Dead animated style, and it's got like a really cool cast. Katie Sackhoff, who most people remember, I think most lovingly from Battlestar Galactica, but she's in tons of stuff.
It was a long time ago now, Battlestar, but yeah.
I know, but that's still, to me, that's like the Katie, but she's in like so many different things.
Yeah.
And more recently, Star Wars vehicle. Why am I blanking?
She was in a Star Wars show?
Mandalorian.
Oh yeah, she's in the Mandalorian. Yeah, as what's her name? One of the Mandalorian ladies.
Yeah, but she's, she is a beloved sci-fi hero in my book, and so like actor, you see her in tons of stuff. So good to see that her voice is here. James Roday Rodriguez from Psych he has a voice in there. Josh Duhamel.
It's Dumel, I believe.
Sorry. And Jimmy Simpson.
And Dule Hill. Don't you love Psych? Did you say that?
I do love Psych. Wait, Dule Hill's in it too? I guess I didn't see that.
Yeah, he's Ben.
Oh, cool.
Who's the leading right?
You got a pretty solid Psych grouping here, because Jimmy Simpson was also in Psych.
Huh.
So there you go.
And Will Sasso, who is a pretty funny dude. I don't know. He's going to be a sheriff, I guess. Yeah. Either way, do you know who Catherine Isabel is?
No.
She's playing Barbara. Anyway, yeah. So there's I don't. Don't know who she is.
Let's see who she is so that we're not looking dumb.
Oh, too late for that.
Any more ignorant than we normally are. She's a Canadian actress.
Is an actress.
Oh, I do know who she is. Have you ever seen? It's like a kind of a weird culty, and I think we've talked about it once or twice before. A weird culty werewolf film from 2000 called Ginger Snaps, which is good.
No, I haven't seen that.
So basically, it's the premise of this is that these girls turn into werewolves because they're hitting puberty, or that's the implication. I think there's something else to it, but she's one of the people from that.
She was in some episodes of Hannibal, which was a really dark and edgy show, and she was in Psych.
Yeah, there you go. So I guess this is a pretty big Psych vehicle.
Maybe it's just a Psych reunion, yeah.
Which, you know, Psych, I'm still again. I think it's a great. It's definitely a great. I don't want to call it a blue sky show, but it's a comforting show.
Yeah, I think that's where it is. It's like a crime procedural with very little bad vibes, right?
Crime procedural, but they also have a lot of throwbacks to pop culture, and especially, you know, they'll do like silly little reference episodes. So they had like a Twin Peaks episode, and you know, there's so many like that. That's just the one that comes to mind. But anyway, throwing it out there.
So this has been given a rating by the MPA, which means I think that it must be done, right? They must have seen a screener of it. So there's nothing. It says in the fall it'll be released by Warner Brothers Home Entertainment. So I don't know. I'm excited.
Yeah, so I'm excited about this. This will be very cool. So we'll have to check it out when it comes out. And now we can actually wrap this puppy up. Sorry
with
about that.
One more off-road thing.
Oh wait, I didn't think this was part of it.
I mean, it's not, but I want to say.
You just want to bring in the
Missouri.
koi.
I want to bring in the koi. Like there was a post on Missouri Department of Conservation's Facebook where they have a dude holding a goldfish, which is at least the length of his torso. This is a grown man, and he's holding a 9-pound koi. And they're saying, don't throw your pets into the, I guess, Blue Springs Lake over the weekend. So this koi must have been disposed of at some much smaller size and has grown and grown and grown, and they're invasive. And so yeah, just don't do that, because otherwise you'll have monster koi.
Yep. So don't do it. Don't do it.
I don't even think they make good eating. So there's no real advantage to having 9 pounds of koi.
Nope.
However, USS Pennsylvania and The Beginning are the two episodes we're going to be talking about today for Fear the Walking Dead. They were both actually the first one was written by Nick Bernardoni and Nazrin Chowdhury and directed by Heather Cappiello. We have heard Nick and Nazrin's names before. I don't remember if we've seen other work directed by Heather Cappiello, but USS Pennsylvania.
There might have been one, but this is definitely,
These are some recognizable names for Fear the Walking Dead in season 6, I would say, yeah.
I'm sure that they got really excited about having an episode in a submarine and all of the things that would entail. I do think that especially, still with some of the pandemic restrictions, it gave them a specific set so that they could sort of, block off certain things and have certain actors together and not, and that kind of thing.
It's probably an expensive set.
It was an expensive set. It looks like an expensive set. I do, the idea of them being in a submarine on land is kind of funny. But I will say that some of the things that annoy me in general about this season kind of continue to annoy me. The whole premise that you've got Teddy who's going to take out everybody because reasons, to start everything over again, that he's chosen Alicia basically as his redeemer. I don't know, like if you have somebody as nuts as him who thought what he was doing was right in the first place, I don't know that he would have gotten there. And, of course, they set up what you would expect them to set up with him and Dakota.
I don't know. I do have questions about what our expectations are supposed to be of his. I first start asking the question in this, like in the opening of this episode where he and Dakota are having this conversation that's very strangely lit. And then you realize they're inside a submarine. But he's talking about how he is the person for her. He understands her like nobody else will. He doesn't want her to be any different from, like, this is the theme of these two episodes, is Teddy manipulating Dakota. but there's a sexual thing going on here. Am
Oh
I
yeah, there
wrong?
definitely is. There definitely is. And it was almost getting there. Oh, I mean, there definitely is that going on here.
That's super
Um,
gross.
and it's really gross because she's pretty young.
And she is
And
not like she is not fawning over Teddy. It's
no,
all from him down to her, and it's Sue. Yeah, we.
yeah, it gives you the creeps. You're not wrong. It's there. And I was like, oh god, I will admit, spoiler for the next episode, there was a moment before, they get interrupted where I'm like, oh my god, let's not go here.
Yeah, but they were definitely going there.
They were going there. Although I'm not sure that she would have accepted that. I think she would also, because she's definitely looking at, I mean, she lost her mom. She's kind of like been, I mean, as much as, you know, she may, her interactions with John Dory, like she's definitely looking at people in general more as parental figures. She's certainly not looking at Teddy in a romantic partner kind of a way. But she also is very much looking for acceptance, and the vibe that they give with his interactions with her is, to me, very specifically like grooming her basically
Yeah,
to be receptive. Like, and look, they've hinted a bit at his culty leadership thing, so I don't think that that's totally out of left field in terms of what they're prepping, but I was just glad that they didn't get there because I was like, I don't know if I can stomach this kind of weird, creepy interaction. So they
yeah,
definitely heavily imply it, and so there is that going on, absolutely. Um, and I do think that they are totally focusing on the fact that Dakota, she may feel a little bit of guilt about what she's done to John Dory, or maybe a lot of guilt, but
yeah,
ultimately she really wants acceptance, and which is why she's totally gun ho now. I mean, she's absolutely his follower. She's going to do the things that he tells her to do, even her interactions with him, um, up until there's a reveal in the next episode.
yeah. Basically,
Or
she's
she's on
sorry.
board.
Yeah,
I
she's on
mean,
board, and she's ready to die. And it's not just acceptance; she's ready to she's
yeah,
ready to
yeah,
be a sacrificial lamb.
yep.
And they even talk about it. Yeah, everyone here is aware they're going to die. But then he mentions that, and there's in this episode there are a few references to this caravan of SUVs that we don't get to see. There's like a lot of talk from the AKA good guy, the quote unquote good guys. It's like, oh my gosh, Teddy brought all of his people, and it's just him, Riley, and Dakota inside the submarine. We don't actually see any other
People.
baddies in this episode. In the next
Nope.
episode, there are two cultists who
Mhm.
appear in one of the sequences. So it's to me, it's like this weird thing where they were trying to set up. Maybe it was like a red herring, and they're trying to get the audience to think, oh yeah, Teddy's brought his whole cult to here to help do this part of the plan, but they haven't at all.
No, and and I would say even the two that make an appearance in the next episode are kind of throwaway cultists. Like they're just,
Definitely, we've
you
never
know,
seen them before, and they
um,
seem to be not embracing the cult message.
right. And
But
that, and
yeah,
actually that is what sort of struck me about these episodes. And again, maybe it was production limitations because of the pandemic, which is absolutely possible. That they couldn't have more of these people on set, or they just didn't have a ton of time because they were trying to basically show all these stories. I noticed just like that seems like it would have been a point of stress, contention, because once people actually realize that this thing is real and that they're going to die, I felt like you would probably have a lot more panic. And maybe we see it's just a tiny amount of that with the sort of Sherry and Dwight little section of the
yeah,
next episode.
that's kind of
But
it.
I feel like it would have been more impressive because they had all these people. Remember, we saw them in the underground bunker,
Hmm.
that they had all prepared. And I don't think that they led all of those people, like, who knows who's in the thing with Alicia, but it felt like there should have been a lot more people that he was leading into as lambs to their death, basically,
Yeah, like
as part of his
there's
plan,
obviously
like
there's
drinking the Kool-Aid, so to speak.
and yeah,
So
and there are two parts of his community. There are the ones who he thinks are the future, and there are the ones that he is like, all right, you guys are just going to help me realize the plan. And Dakota's fallen into that camp, right? The second, well, maybe, at least that's what we think until the end of the next episode. Um,
right. So
but
basically,
a
this
lot of
one,
those dudes got killed by Morgan though in the Grace pregnancy scene. Not a lot, but
that's
like he
true.
killed
But
about
some,
four. He killed four of Riley's friends.
But not as many. I mean, but even Teddy implies that there's like a lot more running around, right? So that's sort of
It's
that was
actually
a
not even
weird
just
thing.
Teddy. It's like the other people are like, oh, watch out for all, like he seems to have shown up with a caravan, but we never. It's just weird. It's just weird writing. Like, why do you feel like you
Yeah,
need
like
to?
even because yeah, it would have been weird anyway, but to keep like referring to it is strange. But anyway, and then we have, the whole sort of premise where you've got your Morgan team trying to stop the warhead from going off.
Yeah, so Morgan's team that shows up, I do want to discuss who shows up, who is in
Yeah.
this like rescue team of Strand got the radio message from Alicia from the previous episode, and obviously like called everybody. This is an all hands, except that it's not, and it's weird who is there with one specific inclusion to who is weird. So we've got Strand, Morgan, June, John Sr., Raleigh, Sarah, Charlie, Lucy, Wes, Grace, who's there with Rufus, Daniel Salazar, and Jacob the rabbi. Oh, and then there's Sherry and Dwight on the horse that Sherry didn't kill.
Yes.
They're really like attached to this story of how they only have one horse now,
One
I feel
horse.
like.
Yeah.
And then there's also Isaac's wife, Rachel, and her newborn baby. Not newborn anymore, maybe 6 months old. But one of these kids is not like the other. Why is Rachel there? And I mean, we know why because of what happens in the next episode. But realistically, practically, why is a probably breastfeeding new mother on this mission? Why isn't she home in the lake?
Right. It's questionable.
It's 100% questionable. I think she does get on the radio at one point in this episode to like give some plans, because like a lot of these people most of them don't go into the submarine. There's like 6 of them who go in. All these other people are just running around off camera, apparently going to a naval base to read plans over the radio. And I think Rachel does that at one point, but I'm like,
Yeah.
I mean, we know she's only here so that she can die.
Yeah. And do whatever. And so we can have that nice tie-in at the end of the next episode.
But how
But
odd
it was
that?
very weird. And also, why does she have the dog? That's also
At the
strange.
but she doesn't at the beginning of this. It's Grace has Rufus, but by the
I
end
know.
of this, then Rachel has fine.
Fine.
Just don't kill Rufus, and we'll be okay. Show we won't be okay, but I'll be better if you don't kill Rufus. So it's remarkably easy, it turns out, to just like acetylene torch your way into a nuclear submarine. Who knew?
Mm-hmm. Remarkably easy. We got a lot of the walkie-talkie action going on. Not shocking. It's Fear the Walking Dead. And their whole goal is to get to the room, the launch room. There's lots of talk about radiation, and they use this as a plot point once again, where there's dangerous walkers that are, irradiated, and also that there's a dangerous level that could be a danger to Morgan and to others. Yet, conveniently, that sort of disappears ish.
It's the thing, the level that Grace is like, okay, if it goes above 20,000, was it 20 or 40,000? That's really bad. Which is, and I looked it up. It's like, I think she says 20,000 millirem, which is only 46 Rontgen. And if you've watched Chernobyl recently, that's less than the 64 Rontgen that they were like, oh, it's not bad, but it's not great. Right. So, I mean, I think maybe I don't know. I'm not a radiation specialist, and Grace clearly is, and so are the showrunners who write for her. But they seem to be throwing out numbers that are a little low compared with what we have seen in Chernobyl, which I do give more points for being technically accurate, I think.
Yeah. So, like they're going to go through this thing. They have a lot of I will say, I like the idea of the submarine crew sort of wandering around, and they show their bunks in the close quarters. And I thought some of that stuff was kind of fun.
Yeah.
They do have the, inevitable Morgan going to try to sacrifice himself thing. One thing with the walkie-talkie play, or at least the communication play, which I was like, oh, come on, is that they have this whole sort of back and forth with Teddy, which I think I was expecting, but he gets in on the comms that are on the submarine and basically is egging them on. They egg him on, and then John Dory Sr. gets involved, which I'm like, why on earth would you try to agitate this crazy man if you know that he's trying to launch this thing. Do you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
you're gonna sort of kick him into higher gear. Maybe you think it doesn't matter, but it's sort of like John Dory Sr. does this whole posturing where he's like, I'm gonna take you out. Oh, it's
Yeah.
me. I put you in prison. You know what I mean? Like, there's all this like silly, ridiculous stuff.
It's pretty funny too when he's describing the bullet that he's going to put into Teddy's head. He's just staring daggers at Morgan the entire time, and I'm like, what?
Yeah, it's like, it just felt like, why are you looking at Morgan in this insanely creepy way? Like I don't know. It's and eventually there's the whole thing where both Morgan and Strand are vying to sacrifice themselves, and then Morgan's all mad at Strand because he says he wasted time. Yeah, in the meantime, somehow manages to grab how many different access cards from these
Yeah,
walkers and had
Morgan
the
does.
where
Yeah, that is
wherewithal
an
to do
interesting
it.
kind of development where Morgan is like, we could have gotten through that door if you hadn't wasted time. Exactly, yes. But this is, you're also forgetting that this is after Strand has tried to murder Morgan.
No, he
Like,
did. It's true.
yeah, but that's a big deal.
It's
Strand
true.
straight up tries to sacrifice. He tries to do a you remember season 2 of
Yeah,
Walking
I
Dead
know.
when
He did. He
Shane
did. You're
shoots
not wrong.
Otis in the leg. It's basically I'm going to shoot Otis in the leg, which is more. I'm going to kick Morgan into a crowd of sailors. Extremely unlikely that Morgan comes out of this without a bite, but
Right.
it's Morgan. He's got plot armor as thick as the walls of the
Yep.
submarine.
Yep. No bite, not like, these mystery bites that often appear on characters. um, but also manages to grab all the access cards of all of these random shambling walkers.
Yeah,
I will say, not in defense of Strand, but kind of in line with his character. He thinks that he's doing this for the greater good. Um, ultimately, and
but
this is
then
this.
like one scene later, he gets ambushed and disarmed by Dakota.
Right. So
So
that didn't work out so well. But and then you have to stand up between Dakota and, like, Morgan takes her down but not out.
but she
And
she gets
then
on the radio or the comms, the boat comms, and is like, "You're gonna want to hear why Strand just murdered Morgan, and you guys aren't any better than me. And how dare you suggest that I, as a psychopath, are not fit to be in your community?" Which I don't feel like anybody's actually said to her. But she wants the freedom to stay a psychopath. That's,
yep,
I
that's
think, her
pretty much
argument.
it.
But she makes the speech about how Morgan has been murdered by Strand, and then Grace, who has the headphones on, is like, no, and starts
No.
breaking down. I'm like, why are you believing Dakota about
Right.
anything ever? And then of course Morgan is like, I'm fine 30 seconds later, and Grace again loses her shit. And you're just like, lady, get it together. Stop.
Well, and also, he's in a submarine. There's radiation anyway. Like, the chances of any of you coming out okay, we're also kind of low, and I think everybody knew that going in.
It's, yeah.
So anyway, but they have the whole sort of like big, moment of confrontation with Teddy and Riley are
Did you expect them to get the missiles off?
I thought they would. I thought it would be. So what I thought was going to happen is that they might get one off, but that it was just, it went into the ocean or something like that. Like, I didn't think they were actually going to have it hit
Yeah.
and, like, anywhere that realistically was going to, like, I just thought that it would be sort of a misfire basically.
Right.
So I did expect them to get one off, but I thought it might be, basically,
No, you didn't think that they were going to irradiate their season 7.
no, I did not.
Yeah, me neither. I thought they would find a way to disable it or disarm it. But even while they're doing it, Riley is telling Teddy, I stopped something like this once. They don't have the skills to do this. And I was like, all right, there's a hook for the webisodes. I want to see that episode. Let's cool. Let's see what Riley was like as a good guy, maybe. So they're definitely laying groundwork for these things to be cool, and yet there's not out there yet, which is a missed opportunity.
Yep. So yeah, so there's, and then that sort of leads into the next episode where Morgan does like this big once again over walkie-talkie, their favorite plot device. Basically
How many times has he delivered one of these
oh my gosh, I don't
soliloquies
know.
by walkie, like, this might be the end, live your life the way you want to live it. I mean, like, we've done this so many times on this show, and it's been Morgan every time.
Yeah. I
And you
think
get to hear his monologue like 6 times this episode because they keep
I
playing
know
it for every character.
every character has their own little like vignette, and you have to hear Morgan multiple times say this ridiculous thing. Um, and you see, and there's like these. It's sort of like they try to cram in everything that they couldn't, and so you've got the group that's with Daniel Salazar, and like
Each of them have a title card too. The
yeah,
first
yeah,
one is
yeah.
actually the beginning, which is Rachel with her baby
Oh,
Morgan
that's right.
and
So they have
Rufus.
that, and
And
again, we
this
don't know why she's
is,
out there,
well,
but
we do because this is the scene where we figure out she's going to try to change the tire on her truck. She's in a truck that she had arrived in with Raleigh. Raleigh is not with her now. No other human other than a baby is with her, and I feel like
yeah.
that's odd because when you look at the end of the last episode, there's a
Mhm.
whole bunch of people standing on the hillside watching the missile fly away. And
Yep.
so when they all decide to run away, nobody is like, I should go with Rachel because she is a nursing mother with an infant. Like, it's bananas. And of course, we see that like Raleigh, Sarah, Jacob, Lucy, Daniel, and Charlie are all in the MRAP in this
Yep.
in this episode. So that they just, I mean, I know what's happening here. It's so, yeah, it just doesn't work for me. It doesn't work for me at all. And they introduced this character. They gave her a tiny bit of screen time in the first episode of the season and a little bit here and there in the middle, all just to have her stick her leg under a jack that she could tell was collapsing so that she could get a compound fracture and die.
Yep. And how much were you feeling that this was very, very similar to Cargo?
Oh yeah. Oh, this is 100% a Cargo nod.
Yeah.
If not a nod, a complete ripoff. Yeah.
Yeah. So there you go.
The only thing missing here, I mean, the thing is she has Rufus to lead her, which Martin Freeman never did, right? He didn't have a dog.
True.
He had that girl like dangling meat in front of his face, I think.
Yep.
The tween girl, I forget her name from the movie version. Yeah, it was you're 100% right. It was totally Cargo.
And then the other issue with this whole thing is that this baby has been crying. The dog, like, I just don't know that they get to where they're going without some walkers being attracted to them. Like,
Yeah.
but somehow they managed to do that.
Or Rachel turning around in circles to try and get to the crying thing on her back.
Correct. But maybe having the dog in front of her keeps her focused. I don't know. But ultimately, like, and I'm gonna like jump a little bit ahead because with the Grace and Morgan vignette, they're both basically saying bizarro things about Athena and about they're gonna sacrifice, they're gonna like kill themselves so they don't have to watch each other die with radiation poisoning. And yet suddenly that all goes away when this baby comes onto the scene.
Yeah, for Morgan, I feel like Grace has a pretty weird
like,
look on her face at the end when Morgan's like, I think this is a gift. And you look at Grace's face behind him and she's like kind of frowning.
Yeah.
I think she was like, no, I still want to kill myself. God damn it, Morgan.
It's really weird. So there's that. And then we've got Dwight and Sherry riding around together on this horse. And
Poor
this
horse.
is the only place really where the culty members, other than the one on the big the big
submarine.
truck. Yeah. No, the MRAP, whatever it is. MRAP shows up. But they do this whole ridiculous thing where they go into this house, get warm beer. There's a family there, and
Sherry has this whole come to Jesus where she's like, "Oh, I wasted so much time," and she's just saying all the things that I've been saying about her all season.
Yeah,
she's like, "Why are you being so dumb and angry all the time? You're not accomplishing anything. You should be mad at Negan."
Right, and also you guys reunited. That's kind of a big deal, but maybe not.
So she says all the things we were thinking, and then they're like attacked by the people who live in this house, who are named characters. If you look at the the cast list. So, I mean, all of these little vignettes are setting up something for next season. But of course, Chambliss and Goldberg are awesome at dropping threads, like the children from the campsite, all kinds of other people who have just kind of wandered out of the show. So they might not stick around, but I think their names are like Kim and something, I forget. And they have a daughter, and Dwight and Sherry decide to do the noble thing.
However, can I also point out that ultimately they do kill the horse because they
Oh yeah, they totally
like,
kill that horse.
that horse, they just let it run away into
Yep.
its poor radiation irradiated
What were they going to
chamber.
bring it into the shelter and
No,
then
but I'm just
lose, like,
saying,
freak out and kill them all with its hooves? Yeah,
just saying.
yeah. No, they
And
killed a
then
horse.
they hide in the shelter with these people.
This
And
horse
you,
death was more justified, and I use that in air quotes because, but you're like, yeah, I will sacrifice the horse to get the doors open so that we can get into the shelter. But
yeah,
the one that Sherry killed was for absolutely no reason whatsoever.
right. And we have Strand wandering into this hotel, listening to some blues, meeting like an historian, and basically taking on the mantle of Morgan in a super strange way, like trying to
Yeah,
build himself up to be a hero, and that's kind of odd.
and also only lasts about 20 minutes where he's
Right.
like, my name's Morgan Jones, pleased to meet you, I'm a good person. And then,
Mhm.
oh no, I'm not, I'm Victor Strand and I'm a bad person and I deserve all of your stuff. I'm like, Howard, you should be killing him. Howard is played by Omid Abtahi, who we should know from American Gods and The Mandalorian. He was the doctor who was going to
Yeah,
do experiments on Grogu from The
I
Mandalorian.
remember him. Like he's great.
So yeah, like a very recognizable actor. He as Howard the historian, which is great. He does look a little bit chagrined at having welcomed Strand into his shelter. I do think the right thing and reasonable thing to do, having listened to Strand deliver his evil laugh and evil monologue at the end of the episode, should have been just to shoot this guy. This guy's bad news. Everybody knows it.
Right.
Because yeah, spoiler alert: Strand has gone full evil. Strand will be the big bad. There'll
Oh
probably
yeah,
be some other
totally.
ones too, because got to complicate it a little bit. But yeah, we and this is the one thing that I do think that Shambliss and Goldberg have done a good job with. They have resuscitated this character and brought him back into interesting territory, like him trying to murder Morgan and then being like, oh, I am Morgan Jones because he was a good person and I'm a bad one, and then being like, actually, screw that. I love being a bad man and my name is Victor Strand and I'm going to be bad. Yeah, this does work for me as beats,
Yeah,
even if it's a little weird to do all the flip flopping.
I guess. And then the last like vignette, which they, is with
A whole bunch of
Teddy,
people.
Dakota. Oh no, sorry.
Oh yeah,
Let's
there's
talk
there's
about
two other vignettes. Yeah,
there's two others. Let's talk about the vehicle one, which is, we've got the group of people. They're, Raleigh is kind of leading the way and driving. There's a whole thing with a flat tire, and Daniel Salazar is basically like, I've been hearing these coordinates. I think it's a safe place to go. And given Daniel's track record, I don't know that I'd be following him.
no, but when
Um,
you listen, if you go back and listen to the voice on the radio, and it's super garbled, but they at the beginning of his cutscene or whatever you want to call it, Dame Arma, I think it's called.
mhm.
You can hear it's Al's voice. Like it's
Yeah,
it's garbled, but that's Al. You can
it
hear it.
is, and it's the only place that like we'll talk about this in a second, but like she and Alicia are not in this episode at all. So that's
Yeah.
kind of strange that we're doing all this stuff and we don't see them at all.
Like, did
Um,
we know that Al was gonna bugger off and go find Isabella?
no, I don't think so. So in any case, there's this whole thing going on. I also think it's like we've got Raleigh and Riley in the same vehicle, and Riley has given up the coordinates of the hotel really quickly, which again, they're culty and crazy. So you would think that they would have had some suspicion of this willingness to share this info, especially since this is like their whole reason for doing everything is to have this civilization that none of these people like, of course they're not going to give you the information. And so I thought this was like a pretty quick weird thing. Riley makes a reference to like that like Alicia's like a phoenix and whatever, and then Daniel
Yeah.
offhand hears Raleigh say something and just shoots him.
But
And it's just like,
yeah, it's an insane hot take by Daniel, who is like not totally sure of his own cognitive, abilities. But
right, but he does it, and
if you hear
apparently it's
somebody
right.
say the word Phoenix, you get to shoot them in the head, is the takeaway from this.
Oh, and Wendell is like somewhere back at the, I should also say, like, there's this whole thing where he's back at the
We
the,
don't know where he is. Sarah
the ranch, I
can't raise him
guess.
on the radio. Yeah.
And then they all, you know, then decide because of Daniel's hot take that they're gonna go and use these coordinates and get there, and that's what they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just, I don't know, like given Daniel's track record, this seems like an unbelievable thing, but they have these weird moments within this vignette where the rabbi is basically like reassuring while they're
Sarah, yeah,
Sarah while she's trying to fix the brakes, reassuring her that she and her brother will meet again someday, and that
in heaven, I think
everything's
is
gonna
the
be
yeah.
okay, and all this other. It was a very. It's like it's kind of like they wanted to just cram everything that they couldn't do earlier into this one weird, strange episode.
Yeah.
But
Well, they certainly couldn't have, put another one of these extra people in the car with Rachel. All right, I'll leave that one alone now. Hey, you know what is good about this vignette is that Lucy is the boss. She is
yep,
barking orders. It's like they've been listening to our podcast. She is barking orders. She's making the decisions. She's like, Daniel, do you think that you know where these coordinates are? He's like, well, I don't know whose voice it was. She's like, okay, we're going with Raleigh.
right, right,
And then
right.
Raleigh's dead. She's like, okay, Daniel, it's your plan now. But
Yep.
she's the one making all the decisions.
No, and
Sarah
it's
is like
fantastic.
saluting her almost and like being like, okay, boss, let's
Well,
go.
and actually, early in the other episode, they were relying on Lucy to sort of guide them through, like with
Yeah.
the
Lucy
submarine
was the
plans
main
and things
voice
like
on the
that.
radio. Yeah.
So she was taking a key role, a leadership role, which I'm really happy. Again, still not enough, but I was glad to see that they at least did it a little bit with it.
Yeah, it's absurd that it hasn't felt like she's been in leadership roles until now. But this episode, at least, it's not like she had some scenes where she gets to shine as an actor. Denai Garcia. Those two names are very similar. But it's better than it was, and so I'll take it.
Yeah, agreed.
And then the
And then the
helicopter
last,
showing up is a bit odd. Not odd. It's great. It's a Deus Ex Machina. It's like, oh yes, and after months of trying, Al has managed to get a hold of Isabel and convinced her to help, which is like
the
Isabel
only
seemed
thing
to.
missing from this was Dwight being like, "Is it the beer lady?"
Yeah, exactly. And she shows up, saves the day. Wes almost doesn't make it on the helicopter because he stops to paint something that nobody will ever see because there's a nuclear explosion about to happen. Like, why?
Yeah. And then the last vignette I think that we will talk about is the Teddy Dakota vignette with
June and John
John
Sr.
Sr. and June. And, thankfully they did not get to the point where he was. I honestly, like, at the lead up to this particular vignette, I did think that they were going to pull a like Teddy having sex with her and with Dakota. And I was like really grateful they got interrupted.
He definitely starts smooching on her right when Senior shows up, right?
Right.
He's like, he's gone from almost paternal to just straight up like kissing her all over her head.
Yeah. And she starts to have a moment where she's like, oh, I don't know about this, but is interrupted. Thankfully, I was really really happy that they got interrupted. Let's just say I breathed a sigh of relief.
Yeah, it was nasty.
And I will say, John Glover plays the creepy dude really well. He does an excellent job at this.
Yes. What are other things that we know John Glover from?
Well, my biggest thing that I remember him originally in was Gremlins. Gremlins 2, I think.
Was he a bad guy in that?
Yep, he's a badish guy. He's also in Scrooged. And I think from a series point of view, he was in Smallville, I believe, also as a villain. So he plays this kind of role pretty well. And I've never quite seen him in this light, but I think he did a good job. And that beard, do we want to talk about Crazy Beard? Because that beard is beyond Crazy Beard.
I mean, I don't know how he eats food and without getting it in there. It's pretty pristine considering he lives in a post-apocalyptic society. And I mean, I'm surprised that he does not have a lot of stuff in that beard that we can see.
I feel like it's there. We just don't see it.
We can't see it. I think it's a gorgeous piece of hair, and John Glover should be very proud, assuming that it's not a prosthetic.
Well, anyway, they have the big standoff and the big reveal and the big betrayal, which is basically that.
Is it? I mean, like the big reveal or what John Dory telling Dakota, the only reason you're here is because he needs two keys to turn at the same time, right. And they're like 20 feet apart. And she's like, "What? You don't really believe in me and trust me?" I'm like, Is that all it took?
Right.
Is that really all it took?
And the fact that there was like a shelter there, basically.
And the shelter. There were two things.
I would also say, based upon his seriously creepy behavior, is that he wanted like to have a partner to survive whatever this thing was.
I think his plan
so
was
I don't think it was just about the keys, but I definitely think that his whole philosophy fell apart there for her. But the whole like the other part that I don't, and I have to admit, like, please, if I am if I am missing something here, please jump in. I don't understand why John Dory and June feel it's necessary, or anybody at this point feel that it's necessary to redeem Dakota.
Forgive her. Yeah.
Forgive her or do whatever. I mean, she is nuts. I don't see that. I mean, I just don't see that there's a redemption there.
It's some sort of like BS. We're living up to John Dory Jr.'s ideals. Because honestly, they also talk about the St. Louis barn burner or barn raiser, where Dory says to June, because they're in a standoff, and Dory says to June, "Hey, did John Dory, my son, ever tell you about the St. Louis barn raiser?" Which is where he just pulls his gun and Dakota shoots him, and June then disarms Dakota, or no, disarms, I guess, one of them. She shoots one of those idiots, Teddy or Dakota, and it's bad. And then they just kind of like climb into the hatch. John Dory with his new gunshot wound, which is like his second one in 2 days, and right? They just climb away while Dakota and Teddy like are yelling at each other, or looking at each other and looking at John and John as June and John as they climb down the hatch and lock it on their way down. So that's pretty cold. They did invite Dakota to come with them, but Dakota's like, "No, I have to see this."
I know.
Then she takes a hot second to murder Teddy because she's like, "I don't want to change. I'm a murderer, and this is what I do best." And she murders him, and that's fine. Honestly, she goes out. I'm kind of okay with the way she goes out. I do agree with you that John and June did not need to redeem her. That was an unnecessary part of the story to me. They should have both been at the end of their ropes, and not even revealed their positions and just shot the two of them dead right there.
Yeah.
They don't need them alive for anything. They didn't know there was a hatch. So I guess that's what you kind of get out of that interaction.
Yeah.
But then they get down into a shelter. We don't really get to see the interior of it. I think maybe a little bit. Then the bombs start exploding. And you see that the Sherry and Dwight in their shelter are having to hold the door closed, and the family's in there with them. Strand and Howard are ready for the end, but then nothing happens really to their building.
Yep.
Morgan and June just hide under a truck on the beach.
Yeah, I'm not sure that would work out so well, but okay.
Dakota gets completely Terminator 2'd, which I was pretty happy about. And the helicopter is apparently going to be able to fly away in this shockwave. And I'm not sure that's the case.
No problem. And maybe it's going to CRM. That's the other thing. It's where are they going?
Where are they going to go? She'll drop them off. She can't pick up passengers. CRM would have her head on a spike, right?
One would imagine.
Yeah.
So that's it. And I guess the question is that whether there's going to be, are we going to have all these characters reunite? They've spread them apart enough that you could see them cutting out some of them and never bringing them back, or I don't even know. But, I'm not unhappy this season is over. It ended in kind of the way I thought it probably would. We'll see what happens, or maybe not next season. Maybe we'll just spin this to do. But it started out in such a promising way and ended in a, the way, I just don't care enough anymore, which I know is terrible, but you're correct. I think that, it's all set up with Strand as the big bad.
Certainly he's going to be a big question mark if he's not the big bad, the obvious big bad. But him and Howard have old bourbon and records and antique rifles. They're set up, they're ready to go.
Yep.
We'll see. How are any of them going to survive this nuclear fallout area? Grace is convinced that they're all going to die anyway. She said as much to Morgan. we'll see, man. Goldberg is already doing interviews where he's talking about how next season the zombies are going to be weird and scary. I'm like, well, that's if you remember to write them into the episode, dude.
Yeah.
If you forget, they can't be.
So, all right. Well, it's a wrap. So, what do you want to talk about next week?
I think we need to jump on Black Summer, right?
I agree. I'm down with that.
2 episodes at a time.
All right, let's do it.
I'm very excited about it. I've watched a couple, and there's some great stuff already.
Well, I say you take us out of this then.
In which case, I shall say, sorry that we were late in wrapping up season 6 of Fear the Walking Dead. I do think that these 2 episodes were better on average than most of the rest of the season. I know that other people have been pretty critical of the season finale. I think it sets up some possibly interesting stories for next season. We'll see. We don't have a lot of faith in the showrunners here on Reanimated.
Yep, that's true.
But,
I agree with you. I think they were slightly better quality than we have seen, but again, I think that the biggest negatives about the season is the all the plot holes and kind of not utilizing the strength of some of the different characters. And we got to see a little bit of that especially at the end with some of them. So it's this sort of like weird thing where I think maybe it could start out in an interesting way, but maybe we'll have to see where it goes. But again, I don't know, I'd be okay not watching it, which I know is not probably a good sign. But we know I probably will. So there's that.
Yeah, we'll at least watch it privately and then decide if we want to podcast
probably
about
that's
it.
what will happen.
But if you have thoughts about these last 2 episodes, please share your thoughts with us on Reanimated or on Twitter at ReanimatedPcast. You can email us at reanimatedpodcast@gmail.com, and our show notes with all the links to pictures of giant koi will be at reanimatedpodcast.com.
Right, and until next time, ciao. Thanks for listening.
And bye-bye.